All right, everybody, welcome, welcome. My name is Sam Caballero with Pivot In, and welcome to this emotional intelligence class. Let me go ahead and get this presentation set up here, and we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to pull up a poll, and on that poll is going to ask the question if, can you stop your emotions? So can you stop your emotions? So I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll, and I just want you to answer it. Can you stop your emotions? So we got several that have already indicated, can you stop your emotions? And so I appreciate you providing us your insight because we're going to answer that question here in just a second. And of course, most of you said you can, but there's some surprising things that do come up when it comes to emotional intelligence and emotions. And you could either chat this or unmute, but when you take away the E out of emotion, what do you have? So when you take away the E out of emotion, you have what?
Motions.
Motion. And
Mhm.
motion, Kimberly means what?
Well, it depends, I guess. To me, it's kind of like an action.
You got it. It's a movement. And
Hmm.
so with that movement, it's making you or pushing you or pulling you. But what do you think the E stands for? Anyone? So what does the E stand for in emotion? You can chat or me, but what do you think the E stands for in emotion? External, you're close, but externally or internally, what kind of energy do you have going on? So, what energy comes up in terms of what is moving you, pushing you, pulling you? For instance, what do you see when you see this particular picture? A face, absolutely. And the curiosity starts to hit. And we know that curiosity is this feeling or level of energy where you start to recognize, like, what is that? What's making me, pushing me, pulling me to want to know more? But then when you expand the picture, it's like, okay, well, what is it now? Is it a woman's face or is there something else? So we're going to talk about that and a lot of other things as it relates to emotions in this short class that we're going to have today. We're going to really focus on defining some terms. And there's actually two terms that I want you to be mindful about because a lot of times we use one term really easily, but in reality, it's something completely different. Then we'll go into the process. What happens when you're triggered? Then the domains of emotional intelligence. And then what are some things that you want to do now that you have this information in your back pocket, in your mind, in your next steps? So I'll just give it to you right now. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize and understand your emotions in yourself and others. Well, it starts off with you, and then you can start to really engage with, all right, well, what is happening with others? And it is about leveraging or utilizing the self-awareness to regulate one's behavior. And to regulate one's behavior, which we'll talk about more in a minute, it is about, well, how do I want to manage me? But you hear this term EQ quite a bit. And we have emotional intelligence, which is EI. So EQ stands for what? You can chat that or unmute, but what does EQ stand for? And it's something that has to do with IQ, because we know that it's intelligence, what? Quotient. Absolutely, ED. I appreciate you. Nice seeing you again. So absolutely. And so what is emotional quotient then? So there are six primary feelings that everyone has: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, surprise, or disgust. And on a scale of 1 to 5, can you identify where you're at? Like, for instance, I'm happy. 4, not all the way 5, but I'm 4. But if somebody were to cut you down the road as you're driving down the street and someone cuts you off, where's your anger? 1, it's the husband driving the pregnant wife. That's what it is. Or is it like, ¿sabes qué? You cut me off. That's a 5. So emotional intelligence is recognizing what awareness do you have for you and possibly for others. But emotional quotient, now we're really looking at the measure. Like, can I measure where I'm at, the feeling? Because when someone makes me happy or sad or angry, and what does that look like overall? So a long time ago, I used to work here. And I remember the first day that I got there, I was super happy for that job. And as people were coming up to my cubicle and welcoming me to the team, there was this one person that came up. She said, "Hi, my name is so and so. You took my job. That was my job. What do you know about infection control? I was supposed to be in that job." So, what would you do? Brand new to the team, and people are coming by and saying, "Welcome." And there's this one person who applied. She didn't get it. I did. And now she was letting me have it. What would you do? You can chat or mute.
It has happened.
No.
Yes, but not at that level. But and I think my first reaction, I'm trying to go back to that moment, and I think my first reaction was, "Oh, really? Interesting, and looking forward to collaborate with you." Something like that. I went PC on my answer because I didn't want to add fuel to the fire. But in my head, I'm like, well, you need to talk to the decision makers. Don't talk to me.
Uh, it when it happened at first, I thought to myself, well, who are you to do that to me? And then I don't know what ended up happening, but it has something to do with this next question, which is, okay, well, what is the relationship to and your really is about your personal brand? And at the time, I really started focusing on what people thought about me because can you control what people think about you? You can chat or unmute, but can you control what people think about
Absolutely not.
you?
And you can't please everyone, so you just kind of have to be yourself and just let
You
it go.
you do, and I would say be yourself because being your authentic self is so much easier than having to organize something and you have to remember, okay, this person is supposed to be blank. But this was at a part of my life where I started really focusing on how do I react? How do I engage? How do I connect? How do I interact? And for a little split second, I got a little light in my head. I thought, well, when was the last time, Sam, that you didn't get picked and you ended up having to train that person? So then I started to do what? And it starts with an E. So I started to do what? And it starts with an E. Absolutely evaluate because, oh my goodness, you're starting in your mind to recognize what's there. But then as you evaluate, you also start to empathize. And what's interesting about the word empathy is the first 2 letters of the word empathy, which is EM. EM actually means I, either my eye or their eye, pathy of the beholder. And so for 5 short seconds, I started to think about, oh, what does she must experience or what's going on? But then, as I was thinking about that, where do you think Sam ended up at after I was thinking about her empathetically? So where do you think Sam went to?
Knowing Sam, I think Sam tried to build a partnership with her and bring her along
I
into
tried.
his plan. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I did. I tried.
Mhm.
And, it's just one of those things. But at the end of the day, we are all wired the same. What do I mean by that? Well, we get stimulated 5 different ways, some of us 6. So it's what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, what you feel. And then, of course, you have the 6th sense, which people believe it's an additional item to the brain, to your senses, which is intuition. And what happens is it actually goes to your spinal column. All those sensors, what you eat, what you smell, what you see, what you hear, and it's going to enter your brain through the spinal column. And as it enters the brain, it's going to hit an area called the limbic system. And in the limbic system has basically all of our emotions. And there is a theory that we could actually have 34,000 different emotions broken into those 6 that I provided: anger, sadness, disgust, happiness. But it doesn't stop there. It continues on. The stimulation continues to go, and it's going to hit a part of the brain called the frontal lobe. And the frontal lobe is where we have our ability to be rational, realistic, pragmatic. So, question: why does the stimuli go to the limbic system first and not directly to the frontal lobe? Why?
Is the limbic system responsible for regulating the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system?
It is fight, flight, freeze. Some believe fawning now. So, fight, flight, freeze. And then, have you ever played dodgeball and the ball was hitting you, and for a split second, you're like, that ball's about to boom. And so, that fawning where there's really no decision made, you're like, wow, everything has stopped. And so there's also a theory that our early ancestors, their brains were smaller, and it was because the brain was at a limbic system size, which means that in the future, our brains are going to be what? Just a little bit bigger. But who knows? Who knows what could possibly happen? But once again, we're all wired the same way. The stimuli will go directly to the limbic system. The limbic system actually does not influence the frontal lobe, and the frontal lobe doesn't influence the limbic system. And we have known about emotional intelligence all the way back to this guy, Publius Syrus, an ancient Greek philosopher, teacher, who identified how we were driven by our emotions. And he's the one that actually came up with something called rule your feelings, lest your feelings rule. So with that, let's talk a little bit about those 4 domains that control what's happening. So those 4 domains are broken into personal competence, recognition, social competence, and regulation. And when you look at personal competence and recognition, it is about your self-awareness. I remember a long time ago, I went to visit my grandmother who was living in a part of Texas called the Valley. And we were sitting in a Pizza Hut when all of a sudden, one of her friends from high school showed up. Ay, ¿qué estás haciendo? And they were just talking. And then as they were making introductions and so forth, she took her hand and she started hitting the back of her head. I mean, just tapping her head. And as the conversation was going, she continued, but it got even faster. And I was like, anyway, bye con Dios, nos vemos. So she said goodbye. She ended up leaving. And I turned to my grandmother and I said, did you see that? And she goes, what? I said, did you saw her? She was tapping her head. And she was like, oh, she's been doing that for years. I said, yeah, I noticed she's got a bald spot back there, but did you notice it? So, do you think she noticed how she taps the back of her head? And why does she do that? What do you think?
Is it a soothing type behavior?
It could be. It could be soothing. It could be to relieve anxiety. But here's a question. Do you think she's self-aware of what she's doing? And then it poses the question of, well, what are things that I do that I'm not aware? So as you think about that, now let's dive deeper into social awareness. So I used to work with this guy. He was a really nice guy. But one of the things that I did not like about him was that when he would shake hands with women, he would not look them in the eye. Who do you think he was looking at? You think? And I caught him. And I told him, I said, I saw you. And he goes like, what? I said, I saw you. He goes, oh man, you're crazy. I said, no, 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 I'm not crazy. I see you, and I see you multiple times. But here's a question. It's one thing to be self-aware of your behavior, but it's another that when you're around other people, what does that look like? And what does it look like when you're around the boss, your boss, or around a family member, or maybe a team member? Does it change? Or are you the same ready, let's go, high pump, positive, engaging person? Or do you do things where some people may not think that that is particularly well taken? So in this case, is that professional to be able to do that? And the answer to that is no. So with that, you think about your self-awareness, your social awareness, and now what are some things that you can do to really engage you, but put some limits? So before we continue on, what I'd like for you to do is I want you to think about words that start with M-A-N. So we got a word over here, management or manage. But what are some words that start with M-A-N? You can put those on the chat, or you can just put them out there by opening up the mic. But what kind of, oh, Christine, you just went straight for that word, didn't you? So Christine, is that a good word? You put it out there. Come on now. Okay, maybe not. No, but you're on to something. You're on to something. So manifest, absolutely. Manual. In Spanish, we have the word manejar, which is to drive. And then, of course, manage. So if we have manipulate and manual and manage, what is the theme of these words, especially when to drive you have manejar? What's the theme? Well, yeah, man, okay. But you're right, Christine, it's control. It's control. And so what kind of control do you want to put up or put or organize in a way that really engages you, but puts you in a perspective of being intentional? So we're going to talk about what does it mean to be intentional here in just a second. So self-awareness, social awareness, self-management. And now we come to the end, which is relationship management. And relationship management stems from what is my relationship to and with my boss, my peers, my colleagues, those that I support as their direct supervisor, my spouse, my kids, my parents. And so as you think about this for you, I want you to take an opportunity and I just want you to put a number down for each one. And what you're going to do is for self-awareness, you can either put a 1, which is I have no self-awareness, Sam, about myself, or a 5, I have excellent self-awareness. Or I'm in the middle, a 3. And then you can use the 3 to say, well, I'm a little more than just in the middle, or I'm a little low below the middle. But I want you to rate each one: self-awareness, social awareness, self-management. But then when you get to relationship management, I want you to think about people where I, I really get along easy with most. And then, of course, there's some people I just can't get along with. On average, what does that look like? I can get along with most people. I'm at 4. So I'll just give you a minute. Think about each one. Don't spend too much time, but whatever comes up for you first, write that down. And then, of course, add up the score and then put the score to the side. And we'll talk about the score here in just a second. 1 minute starts now. So as you think about each one of these and you rate it, I want to bring your attention to a really quick story. So years ago, my brother-in-law and I, we used to own a business and we would buy pallets of different stuff and we would take them to the flea market. And I became really, really good friends with the person that would supply us. And he was actually out of Mexico. And we would get all kinds of stuff. And we'd take it to the flea market, we would sell it. Well, one time he sends us a bunch of auto parts. And I'm like, what are we going to do with a bunch of auto parts? But lo and behold, by the time, like in 3 hours, we had sold all of it and we made $15,000. So a few months later, I get a call asking if my brother-in-law and I would be okay to come down to Mexico City because he was having his clients come down for, just to show us around town. And we had grown to like this guy, so we trusted him. So we went down to Mexico City and he took us all over. I mean, it was a fantastic trip. Then he took us to this one really fancy restaurant and he told us, oh, vas a gustar la comida. You're going to really like the food. It's so good. But there's one plate. It gives you strength and vitality. And I'm like, really? Strength and vitality? Do you know anything of Mexican cuisine that gives you strength and vitality? So, before I continue on, who's the guest or guests in this scenario? You can chat or unmute. Who's the guest? Us, yeah. And of course, who's the host? The gentleman down in Mexico City. And I know everyone here has either played the role of a host or the guest. And of course, what's the expectation of a guest? So you're hosting them. What do you expect from them? To be graceful, absolutely. To be grateful, too. And to like my food. So, $15,000. Would you eat this? Eleanor, come on now. You haven't even tasted it yet. So escamoles. Escamoles has a consistency of risotto or rice. It's got a little bit of a tang and saltiness to it. But what you would do is you would take it and you would fry it with onions, tomatoes, cilantro, and it's really, really good, actually. I enjoyed it, and I've had it before again, but it is carpenter ant larvae. Oh, heck no. But, 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 who's the guest? Who's the host? And what would motivate you to have it together? Because name me some words that start with mo. What are some? So, Eleanor, is that a good motivating factor? Money? Yes, to be modest. So, what's interesting about money is that it is a wonderful motivating factor. However, a research study done a few years back showed that four paychecks, four paychecks, all it takes for it not to feel any motivating than it was before. And yeah, I was motivated by the money too, but I was also motivated to my personal brand. Like, I want him to like me. I want to do good business with him. And of course, when you think about, all right, well, what is the relationship to being intentional? Then what is that? So, what does it mean to be intentional? You can chat or unmute, but what does it mean to be intentional? Especially when you're sitting down, sipping margaritas, and now they bring out gusanos fritos or fried worms. What does it mean to be intentional? To do something on purpose, absolutely. And what's interesting about intentionality is internally, what are you doing to really connect and having your emotional intelligence aligning to how do I want to present myself? How do I want to act? Am I aware of me? Am I aware of my social surroundings? Am I regulating me because I want to have a great relationship with this person? So, what can you do to get more intentional? Well, here are a couple of things you can do. First off, get some self-awareness. And it's not like going to Walmart and getting a couple of batches of self-awareness, but it really is about knowing you and knowing what your triggers are. What's a trigger, by the way? What's a trigger? Christine says a situation evokes an emotional reaction. Absolutely. I appreciate that, Eleanor, as well. It's like driving down the street and someone almost hits you as you're driving down the street. And you tell yourself, hmm, because maybe you want to like press the gas and see who it is, maybe brake check them. Anyway, but you know what your triggers are. And if you know what those triggers are, then what can you do to regulate them? Because then maybe you have someone that's got your back, a friend, a colleague, maybe a boss, family member that can provide you with feedback in terms of what they see, what they're hearing, how you're reacting. And then you can be even more intentional based on your approach. So self-awareness, social awareness, and then what are some things that you can do to grow your mindset so that you can leverage tools and resources to your benefit? Like, I got pictures of my kids. I've got this thing that I use for my hands to kind of strengthen them, but it helps relieve anxiety. So whatever it is, use it to help you and how do you manage you? Because ultimately, what can you do to visualize good relationships, even with the most difficult boss or difficult team member? And just like with this young lady I mean, oh my gosh, she gave me a run for my money. But knowing my personal brand, knowing how I wanted to engage with her and empathizing with her. And to empathize with her, I had to really go back to what does it feel like and look like to live on the south side of town growing up, miss meals at night, one mom household, and money was scarce. So that allowed me to really be able to be intentional with her so that I could really connect with her. And she eventually took my job because I eventually moved on and she ended up getting her PhD too. So I'm really happy and proud for her. But let me tell you, whew, it was difficult, but we got through it. And with that, I also want you to think about now that you have some additional information about what is emotional intelligence, maybe maybe there's someone out there in terms of who could I reconnect with, family member or friend. So as we come to the end, is there anything at all that really hit for you in anything that we talked about this evening in terms of emotional intelligence? Anything at all? If you can chat that or unmute, but is there anything that really came up for you in this short class on emotional intelligence?
I really like the observe, respond, and react. I really like that.
I appreciate that. I think when you find yourself in a challenging time, like a moment, your boss is telling you you're not good enough, or someone took something from you and you don't know exactly what it is or how it happened, but it happened. What can you do for that split second for you? It's amazing. What does it look like for you to be that intentional? So I appreciate you sharing that. Before we leave, just a couple of things. First off, what is the one thing you would like to start doing? And if it's okay, you can either share that too on the chat or unmute, but what's one thing that you would like to start doing? I know for me, one of the things I really started doing once I learned about emotional intelligence was to not react at first. And that was hard. Kimberly, I appreciate it. Think before I react. Absolutely. And I know it sounds so much easy than done, but when you just pause, take a deep breath, and just slowly breathe out and exhale, it does some amazing things for you in terms of what does my next step look like overall. I'm also going to leave you with this. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's way. Dr. Viktor Frankl. Is anybody aware or know who is Dr. Viktor Frankl? So in the 1930s, Dr. Viktor Frankl, who was born and raised in Vienna, Austria, was a world-renowned psychoanalyst, psychiatrist. I mean, he was touring the world and he came up with some really interesting theories that we still use today. Well, unfortunately, it was right around this time that we had something called the Anschluss. The Anschluss was basically Adolf Hitler marching into Austria where they took it over. And because Dr. Frankl was of Jewish faith, where do you think Dr. Frankl landed with his wife and parents? And he's Jewish, and now they're part of Germany. What were they doing with the Jews in the 1930s? What do you think ended up happening to him?
Did he come to America?
He did not. He actually ended up in Auschwitz, which was a concentration camp. He
Mhm.
lost his mom, his dad, and his wife. But what's interesting about him is that when he would pick up the bodies of children after they were done taking their showers, he would tell himself, today is going to be a good day. Today is going to be a good day. And to have that ability, that power, it led him to survive, number one, but it also led him to write a book called The Meaning of Man, which he talks a little bit about his experience, but it really focuses around what you can do for you when you find yourself challenged. He found himself challenged and he survived. So I appreciate everyone for being here tonight. Thank you very much for your time.